Right, well, we're back in the camper van for the second time. And this time...
What a great tour this is.
We've come across London, and we've just happened to bump into a friend of ours. Mr. Rufus Hound is here, people.
Please hold for applause.
In the back of...
And hi, guys.
Isn't it amazing that we've just bumped into you, Rufus?
I know,
and
there I
here
was.
you were, and there you were on the street, not doing anything. You got 2 hours free to record a podcast. I reckon all our listeners are totally going to buy into this.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
Great stuff.
There I was, handing out my flyers, cash for gold. And all of a sudden, round the corner comes the camper van.
Here we are.
Exactly, here we are.
With Will and Ralf.
Yes, thank you.
I'm assuming you've
Darling, yes.
poshed it up now.
Wilberforce and Rafe.
Wilberforce, yeah.
Would you like a beer, or are you are? It's what time is it? It's 10 to 12. It's too early for a beer. You can have one if you like.
I've lived my entire life as exactly the sort of person that would almost say that was too late to start. But
Nice.
over the last year, I decided to knock that on the head because it turns out in the middle of a pandemic, pouring a load of depressant into yourself might not be the best way forward.
Right, yeah, that's a fair point.
Well,
That's a fair point.
that's probably why I'll be drinking water then from now on. Thanks, Rufus.
Yeah.
No, I went out last night to screening of Jackass. There you go, Ralph said it right for you.
You did say it right. Very
'Cause
impressed.
I do always say Jackass.
Jackass.
And
Jackass.
Ralph always makes sure he reminds me that I'm
Right,
saying it wrong.
go on.
And I
Wilberforce and Rafe went to see Jackass.
Jackass.
well, he didn't go.
In the van.
I went and I definitely sank quite a few last night. And with it not even being 12 o'clock, I couldn't face a beer.
Really?
So
Are you a bit hungover?
not hungover, but listen, I'm 45. If I have more than 4 beers, I feel it. You know what I mean? I do feel it. And I don't sleep the same as well. I was up all night drinking water and pissing.
Do you find? And I've only found this in the last 18 months. This is genuinely not a showing off thing. It's actually really quite disappointing. Like if I used to have 4 beers,
Yeah.
or last night I didn't really drink much. Went out for dinner with the missus, and then we didn't really drink much. I think I had a gin and tonic, and then a couple of cocktails, and then 2 beers.
That's a lot.
That's what I mean. But over 3 hours or something. I'm not talking about I smashed them down in an hour, but over 3 hours or something. But not a not insignificant amount to drink. But you know what? Didn't touch the sides. Didn't feel tipsy. Didn't feel anything. I find that really disappointing.
That's
if I'm
definitely
having a
paradise,
cup.
though, isn't it? You said you sank quite a few after work.
Well, it's not. Well, it was, but it wasn't that we were always getting smashed on Death in Paradise. I think it was just a cold beer after work, and 2 or 3 of those every day. I just built up a tolerance, and now I'm like, if I have 3 beers, I want to feel a bit tipsy. I don't want to have 3 beers and go, oh well, I should have 8 more, otherwise
I think I'm a lightweight because I do feel it.
Still?
Even if I have 1 glass of wine. Have you just stopped drinking now? Is that you, Rufus? You done?
You totally done.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? Because maybe this now becomes a topic of conversation, and unfortunately for me, this has become the topic of every conversation I've had over the last year.
Really, of course, yeah.
So forgive me, because maybe you've covered this already, because it's, welcome to show business. But essentially, about 18 months ago, I worked with a woman who said, just casually, she's well known, and I'm not bringing her into the story just because it's not my place to say who it is, but we were on a set, and she said, yeah, well, ever since my diagnosis, it's been... And I went, oh... Because normally when people just casually drop that in, you think cancer, right?
That's what I thought, yeah.
Everybody I love's died of cancer when they just refer to the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So I went ashen, and she saw that I went ashen, and she went, no, ADHD. I went, oh, you don't strike me as somebody who's got ADHD. And she went, do I not? Well, I have. And I went, no, you haven't. And she went, yeah, I have. I went, no, you haven't. She went, do you know what ADHD is? I'm like, yeah, all the jerking, can't concentrate. She went, no, it's a bit more than that. It's this, and this. And I went, yeah, but that's just how brains work.
Right.
And she went, no, it isn't. And I went, yeah, it is. And she took my hand and went,
Darling.
no, it isn't.
Yeah.
One of the, there are a few what I like to think of as cartoonish truisms about ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And one is that if you look around your apartment or whatever and your laundry's all done in piles where you left it,
Yeah.
it's because your brain's gone, well, the task was make the laundry clean, because then I've got clean things to put on.
Yeah.
The task wasn't do laundry, put it away, have everything organised, neat and tidy. All you need is clean clothes.
Yeah.
So the rest of it doesn't need to. So it's basically this executive function thing. Every task is here are the things I need to do that. Oh, they all seem too much. Oh, right, I won't do it until, normally, there's a gun to your head.
Yeah.
I really literally don't have a thing to wear. So now I've got to do it. The interesting thing about all of that is that once you understand maybe that's been a big part of your decision making since you were a child, you can then look back over your entire life and recontextualize everything you are.
Yeah. We started this because you were talking about
drinking.
Just casually said, do you want to have a drink? So let's get back to that. We're also going to have to talk. Will is worried is probably too big a word, but Will's starting to, as he's getting older and kind of more like eccentric, like he's wondering if can't concentrate on things and whatever.
My wife bought me a book on ADHD.
So we'd love to talk about that. But I will ask, because a lot of the things that you just said about laundry and all, like, which was just an everyday example,
cartoon,
but a lot of that's very familiar to me. I will procrastinate over tasks until I cannot avoid it any longer.
Yeah.
And then finally I'll do it. And often I'll do it and go, actually, that wasn't... Like, my house is... God, I wish I was a tidy person. I wish I was a naturally tidy person. I'd be so much happier. I'm happy when my house is tidy. But it's basically a shithole up until I go, right, someone's coming over, I'd better tidy it. And then when I tidy it, I go, it's much nicer and it wasn't as difficult a task as I thought.
Yeah.
So I do recognise that. But one of the things that I've procrastinated over for years and never done, and I think you're probably the same, Will, I've always fancied to go at stand-up, and I've never, ever, ever taken the plunge and done it, because it's only when I'll have a gun to my head. One day I'll do it, I don't know when. So I'm saying that because it surprises me that you just went, fuck it, I'm going to give stand-up a go, when you are somebody who will put something off, especially something as big as being as exposing as going try and stand up. How did... You know, that seems to be at odds with what you've just described to me.
Yeah, but it is... I mean, it's a phenomenal example of exactly the undoing process that I've had over the last year, where I feel like I just undid myself. Further to that, there's something very immediate about stand-up and comedy and getting the laugh and being alive in the moment that was always the thing that I was much better at than learning the lines and delivering some big thought-through dramatic thing and it's going to lighten shade and all of this. Meaning that, basically, from when I was about 3, there's a video of me copying The Muppet Show, doing like a full Rudolf Nureyev routine.
To the Muppets?
Yeah. Rudolf Nureyev was on The Muppets. No, he did Putting on My Top Hat.
Oh, right.
I'm putting on my top hat. And so there's me doing that at 3, and you can hear there's about 4 people behind the camera all going, oh, wonderful, oh, so good. And I watch that video and go, that was probably the moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, how do I...
My nan used to, she referred to me as Nana's champion.
Oh.
I was the youngest and the only boy, and I was referred to as Nana's champion, and I look back at that and go, oh, Christ, that explains a lot. Like a horrible amount.
Exactly the same. I was the youngest and then the only boy, and I've got 4 older sisters, and it was just like, right, Will, do that impression. Go and do that.
Isn't he great?
Do that Michael Jackson.
Like,
do that honestly, it was just, you was on stage at home. Even if you, or if you was at you was always, oh, go on, I will go and sing. You sing that song, or talent show, get on stage. It was literally wheel him out, and I loved it.
Yeah, so because you get that feeling that you don't get from anything else.
100%. So your stand-up would be, I guess, what... I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I guess what you're... it seems like you're alluding to this idea that you were like, right, well, that's what gives me value, or that's how I earn value in the world, by getting laughs and getting attention.
Yeah.
But, mate, what about... I ask all stand-ups this, but it has a... Because I'm obsessed with it, but it has a much bigger resonance now, given what you've said. What about bombing? What if you're going, okay, this is what my fucking value is about, this is what my worth is, and for better or worse, that's why you got into it.
Yeah.
What about the terror of going, what if everyone thinks I'm shit?
So, a couple of things. The fear, right?
So I don't know where that made me.
A couple of things.
A couple of things.
Well,
how long have you got? Be funny and don't be shit.
One is that what you're talking about is fear. You know, what if you bomb? And actually, the motivator to do stand-up was that... I'm going to have to fill in one gap to make this make sense.
No, you can do what you got to do.
So I did a lot of shows and plays. I went to a good school, but I had a scholarship to be at that school, and it was a performing arts scholarship. So I read a lot of Shakespeare. I just basically spent all my time in this drama block, reading plays and all of that. The performing, the being a performer, the being in the play, all of that stuff was just absolutely etched into my personality. But at 19, as a family, we didn't have any money. I realised if I went to university, all I'd leave with was a liver disorder and no degree, because I knew what I was like.
And debt.
Yeah, that was it. 60 grand's worth of debt, a liver malfunction, you know, and some stories I could only barely remember. So uni was also the year that they went from full grant to you were going to pay fees and all that. And basically my family just had no money. Yeah. So I went and got a job and I worked in a PR company and I did that for about 18 months. Started seeing a girl who reviewed stand-up, started going to a lot of stand-up. I'd always loved stand-up, I mean, always loved comedy, but never really thought that's what I would do. Always thought I'd go down the acting route. So I start doing stand-up and dabbling in that in the evenings. And then I get to my office job one day and I have this vision of lying on my death. Oh, no, this was before I started doing stand-up. I'd been working in this office for about 6 months and I had this vision of, oh shit, I've got to do this for another 45 years. And is this what I'm going to do? I'm going to work in offices. And is this what it's going to be? And hang on, you're going to lie on your deathbed and you're going to look back at a life. And there's going to be a moment where you think to yourself, what, and you never tried. You never gave it a go. You spent this entire life knowing there was this thing you knew you were meant to be doing, but you just were never brave enough to try. And it was that fear. It was the fear of looking back.
Trumped to the fear of bombing on stage. And you went, I've just got to do it.
You know, there I am, new in the world of work, looking at this chunk of time ahead of me where I'm going to have to just be nice to people and, you know, corporate and just play the game and
disappear. Can I just say, by the way, you've reminded me of I had a very specific crossroads when I was at university and the royal family came out and I'd already shot, and it was like, do I carry on the path I'm going on, which was medicine? Do I do this very, very secure profession, or do I try my luck and be an actor?
Roll the dice.
And I remember thinking, so clearly I remember thinking, if I don't give this a go, I'm going to turn around one day when I'm 40 and go, why did I never give it a shot? But the reason I make that point is because I chose 40 because it seems so fucking far away. And that was 2 years ago. It's horrible. I was like, where did that go? Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So the fear of going, well, what happens if I never give it a go? Trump to the fear of going. What
Trump the fear of trying it.
And you must have bombed. Every comedian's bombed. How did you deal with it?
Well, that was it. Yeah. So the two things are really that, you know, I think one of the reasons that I wasn't a really great comedian is that I really was going out of my way to make sure I didn't bomb. You know, everyone's got these stories where they bombed. I don't.
Right.
You know,
doesn't that mean you're a good comedian then?
Or does it mean you played it safe?
It means you play it safe. It means, you know, James Acaster, you would probably argue, is the biggest
greatest of his generation.
Greatest of his generation.
I don't know who that is.
Sure.
Who is that?
You just sit and look pretty. Don't you worry about it. Well, you're good at
but no, who is that? I don't know that.
So James people who are listening to the audio of this could just hear me patting you on the back.
I know, patronising twatty, isn't it? Just because I don't know who.
Ruffle your little.
Just because I don't know who Jimmy Acaster is.
I didn't realise you were familiar with him. James Acaster. He's a brilliant, slightly.
You would probably say he's the greatest British comedian of his generation.
Yeah.
Well, I'll listen to it. I just don't.
Stuart Lee achieved like shaman-like status.
Yeah, but I would think he was probably the comedian of his generation.
Yeah, no,
one rung back.
Yeah, exactly.
There'll be others that come.
But Stuart Lee's, I guess, a good example as well. Like, phenomenal. I don't think he gives a shit if he bombs. He does his thing, and if
no.
I think it's the point you were going to make about Acaster.
Actually, yeah, I mean, quite so. If you look at all of those guys, I mean now my brain is just running off lists of comedians for whom this is true, not helpful, and stops me from being able to think of the thing I'm actually trying to say. That willingness to fail means that every time you fail, you'll learn something. And what I did was just try and learn how not to fail. And that there was a combination of delivery and bravado and confidence, and this is the thing I'm trying to accept about myself, intelligence. That meant I could just get through it. And this is the problem, is if you're actually not functional doing getting better at doing the thing, but you've got enough bravado and charisma to get through it, the widening chasm as you get older between what you know you're actually capable of doing versus what you're telling everyone you can do just gets ever wider.
So going back to how it's all started, because we started all this off by saying you don't drink. Yeah. So is that because of ADHD you stopped drinking? Because you think does it?
No, it's not that. It is that. Yeah, I mean, my problem is that I can't answer any question without starting at the birth of the universe and working forwards.
Right.
I've drunk every day of my life since I was 16, pretty much. But I met a woman in May who didn't drink.
Oh, really?
And literally the switch went off, baby.
This is not where I thought it was going.
I didn't think it was going
I thought
there
it was this incredible journey of self-discovery, which it has been. And then you go, but basically met this girl and she was like, I don't drink, so I thought I'd better impress her.
No, but that is it. It wasn't, I better impress you. It was, you don't drink? Great, I don't drink.
Really?
And I didn't, I mean, I'm not a prick. It wasn't. It wasn't that I went, do you not drink? No, I don't drink either. You know, it was I went, oh, do you not drink? Oh, well, I won't drink.
Yeah,
and she went, no, you can have a drink if you want one. I was like, I'm not that bothered.
You could just switch it off like that,
mate. No, this is the point.
Right.
It isn't that I just switched it off. It was that I met somebody who didn't drink, and my brain went, well, okay, you won't drink.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was no like conscious choice. There wasn't a moment where I went, well, drinking's been a massive part of your life basically since you were a teenager. So making that kind of choice might be quite a big thing to take on.
You should think about it.
You should think about it. You know, maybe weigh that up. No, just bang. I don't drink.
But we would like you a lot more if you had a drink now. Sure. So where does that leave you?
Well, it's very interesting because now I'm not going out with that woman anymore.
Oh, God. Get a beer in for Rufus.
Wow.
But it took that to change the behaviour, and now I'm just at a place where I don't drink. So I don't drink.
And you're vegan as well?
And yeah, because I had to. I did the ice skating show because I had no money, and doing that, the doctors called me in. No, last year, yeah. The doctors called me in. They went, yeah, we've done a health scan and we think you might be pre-diabetic.
Oh, geez.
I was like, oh, geez. So I had to go back for a series of proper tests, and they went, what did you eat on the way to the health test? And I was like, well, it was 2.5 hours away in Birmingham, so I mean, I stopped for petrol, which meant I would have bought a pack of Tang Fastics and 2 cans of Monster, and they were
2 cans of Monster.
If you nailed that on the drive, it may have affected your blood sugar really. But they said if you were to adopt a healthier diet over this process, you might find that more useful. And then I moved in with my brother's best friend who lived around the corner from an ice rink, and he was a vegan. So just that moment of, right, I've really got to do this, like time's ticking, I've got to do it. Put a gun to my head and the hyperfixation kicks in, and literally it just changes who I am.
I have found it actually a piece of piss because meat substitutes now are so good.
Hang on, apart from not being able to trust a fart, you're leaving that out. He nearly shits himself every time he farts. He got me to try one. Fuck it.
And he enjoyed it.
He did enjoy it. I had to run from the knees down to the train. Oh, fuck it, honestly, God, it was like hitting Dob. You know, you play marbles. It knocked out all the meat out of my body within seconds. I was like, that's not fucking good.
No.
Read the small print. You may shit yourself when eating this.
Yeah.
Although
that's what you should say.
To be fair, that hasn't really changed my lifestyle a huge amount anyway.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty natural for me.
Yeah.
Russell Howard was in. He goes to us when we were talking to him. He was telling us a story. You know when you like set up a fun punchline to a story, and he goes, anyway, my mate said, and he turns to me and he goes, listen, I mean, how many times have you like shit yourself actually as an adult? And we both just went, oh, all the time. And Russell went, oh, that's not what I thought you guys were going to say.
We went, have you never shit yourself?
No. It really threw him for
Ralph's
a loop.
very regular at shitting himself.
Oh, yeah, it's great, yeah.
Hang on, though.
I've had 3 since the start of this podcast.
Where's a nappy?
I think I first met Russell when we were both, I think we're about the same age, Russell and I, so we were both about 20. We both started very early in our stand-up careers. And he was teetotal before that was ever in fashion in stand-up. Like, the whole point of stand-up was, this is where the reprobates are hanging out.
Everyone gets pissed, surely.
Yeah.
Mate, I would drink
Before,
5 pints
after.
on a night.
Yeah.
Just, that was the running fuel.
Yeah, just as
Get to the
start,
gig,
yeah.
drink a pint, order another one for when the first act's on, second act's on, third act's on, and then be drinking a 5th one, just hanging out with people afterwards. I once worked out I was drinking 70 units a week for a show where the dietitian was like, we just need to know a few things, and I handed it in and she went, no, a week. And I went, no, well, that is a week. I mean, do you mean like if there was a party or something? Isn't it? She was just like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's just base level. That's foundation stuff.
So yeah, I would think his, all his gym stuff, I mean, he clearly takes care of himself. If the muscles on his chest are that pumped, I would imagine the one in his anus is just absolutely Fort Knoxian. Nothing's getting out.
You shall not pass!
I never thought I'd have a public conversation about Russell Howard's anus, and neither did Russell Howard.
His sphincter muscle's tremendous.
We'll have to send Fort Knoxian, no less.
Russell Howard's good poos.
Oh, very nice.
to ask, do you know before you were saying how you thought, if I don't roll the dice here, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to look back and go, you spent 45 years of your life just sat doing the same thing every day, and you chose stand-up. Why didn't you? Because you ended up going on stage doing theatre, a lot of theatre.
Yeah. It's been my living for the last 10 years.
But that's what I'm saying. So why was it stand-up and not theatre? Or was it all under the same umbrella?
Stand-up, you can phone a bloke and say, can I have 5 minutes?
Right.
Autonomy.
Right.
And, you know, you have no track record at all, never have done it. And some club, someone will go, yeah, go on, get you on for 5.
Right.
See how you get on.
Whereas acting, you know, what are you going to do? Start phoning producers like, hi, yeah, I've never done this before, but I think I'd make a pretty good Horatio, or, you know, whatever.
But you obviously enjoy it because you've done so much stuff now on stage.
Mate, it goes right back to, it's what I always thought I would do. At 3, there's video of me doing a Muppets routine. Yeah. The Muppets were a group of dysfunctional weirdos, none of whom were quite the same, and none of whom who seemed to quite know what was going on with each other, who turned up in a theatre week after week and put on something fun.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I looked at the Muppets and went, "Oh, I'm one of them."
Yeah. Which one?
And
that's an interesting one.
Well, waka waka waka. You know?
Yeah.
I'm Animal, no doubt. On the drums.
Without.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. Like, that's what I meant to do. I meant to be on a stage in front of a room full of people and make a thing work. And all of my history of stand-up, really, the thing I was genuinely good at was comparing way more than doing a set. And that was literally walk on stage without a big bag of, here's what I'm going to do, talk to the audience and make it up, you know, and then someone says something funny and now you can work them off this person. And so every night it was, yes, this is live comedy. The show I'm about to do for you, I couldn't do in another room because these people wouldn't be here for it. That was always the joy, alive in the moment. Doing TV, acting, you know, I've done Doctor Who, all great, lovely. I got to work with Peter Capaldi, like, oh, incredible, all great. But where are the people responding to this?
Well, okay,
and telling me it's good, telling me I did a good thing, good boy, pat pat.
The live comedy, the comparing, every show's different every night. That person is from, I can take the piss out of their town and blah blah. There's something they said and play off against someone else. That's a very specific. That's a very specific skill, and something that's going to give you that buzz of going adrenaline and live and let's change it and let's think on my feet. But when you're doing, I mean, you did One Man Two Governors for months.
Years. Over a year. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now, One Man Two Governors, you couldn't ask for a more instant feedback from the audience show. They're rolling in the aisles laughing. I've watched it myself, right? But it's nonetheless the same show every night and the same for a year. You know, it's not that same buzz of going, right, well, I've got to kind of be on my feet and nail different ideas every night.
You're absolutely right. But in that show, there is genuine moments for improvisation. And when they employed me, they said, I mean, obviously, you know, Corden made that part. It's his part. That was what I found so frustrating about it, is it's such a hard show to do in that role.
Yeah.
And I worked my nuts off for a year. In the course of that entire year, because of the contract I'd signed, I had 3 days off.
Whoa.
And it's, 2.5 hour show running around in a wool suit, throwing yourself around the works.
Sometimes 2 shows in a day, I guess.
Yeah,
8 shows a week.
8 shows a week.
Wow.
So, I mean, I had Sundays off every week. When I say I had 3 days off, I had Sundays off every week. But actually being able to say I'd like a day off.
Yeah, Christmas would be nice. That kind of thing.
3 days.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
Wow.
It wasn't a lot, and it definitely was the beginning of the the beginning of the wedge forming in me and my missus, because I'd been on tour and she was like, well, at least once you're back in London you'll be around for the family, but then I'm working nights and I'm home and I'm tired and I'm like, really, you want me to get back at like 11:30 and get up for the school run in the morning and be like,
and by the time you leave for the half hour call, you know, the kids, you've not put the kids to bed. It's too early to have put the kids to bed, so the missus has got to take care of all of that. Then you're back at 11:30 going, I'm knackered, love. I've got to sleep. All that kind of thing.
And it's all very selfish, and you're doing all the mundane work and I'm going off and being Johnny Showbiz, like clap, pat, pat, good boy. So, how can you not resent all of that? It was an incredibly hard job. It was incredibly rewarding. In that job, they had told me when I got it, like, James would just do what James did, but that was fine because people were there ostensibly expecting the James Corden show, so you want to give them lots of James Corden. With other actors who've played the part since, it doesn't work if you're doing hours and hours and hours. And indeed, speak it quietly, they said to me sometimes it didn't quite work if James did hours and hours and hours, which is why we would restrict it ideally to just these couple of moments, and in total no more than 5 or 6 minutes. But it meant that every night I could go out and do 5 or 6 minutes improv. I took a few risks. I jumped down into the audience once or twice, which wasn't really a thing, and there was room in that. What was probably more trying was something like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which was a big musical, where I was in that for a similar amount of time.
Singing. Was that a big sing?
It wasn't a big sing. You could sing it.
Enough of a sing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I had to learn to sing for it.
Right. I was going to ask about that because we spoke to Jason Manford as well, who used to do the warm up for Two Pints. Yeah. So we watched him do the warm up for Two Pints. We were like, he's quite fun, isn't he? He's a bit like a sort of a Peter Kay-esque.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, right. And then he left the warm up to Two Pints. We went, him. I don't know if we'll ever hear from him again. And then suddenly he was the biggest committee. We're like, whoa, Manford's huge. He's amazing. But then suddenly he's this huge musical star. And it was like, did they teach him to sing? Could he always sing? And it was this big.
I think he went to drama school, didn't he?
And he said he was always singing at home.
But then I saw
he did the Masked Singer as well. That's sort of opened the door.
Was he the traffic cone?
No, he was.
Are
he
you
was
the traffic cone?
He was the hedgehog.
Are you the traffic cone?
No.
I know he was the hedgehog because all I got while he was on was 4,000 tweets every Saturday going, "You're hedgehog. We're calling it
I'm
your."
I'm getting now about traffic cone every fucking day.
I think
every
You're
day.
definitely that traffic cone.
I think I've had about 5 asking me if I'm traffic cone.
See, I think we're all traffic cone. There's a bit of traffic cone in all of us.
we're back to those photos from in your early 20s.
We are the world.
But so they taught you. So they went, look, can you? So what was the process? They went, right. We'd like you to be in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Can you sing? And you went, nah, I can hold a tune, but I can't do musical theatre singing. Is that the process?
That was it. And then they said, well, let's give you our musical director for an afternoon. I got through like the first stages of do the meeting, have the chat, whatever. And then they said, we'll get you in for an afternoon with the musical director, and he'll just give you some basic technique stuff, and let's see how it sounds after that. Because if there's a massive improvement, then it might just be, actually, you could pick this up fairly quick. And that was basically what happened.
Right.
Was that by the end of it, there was this big high note that was in one of the songs. They were like, if we can hear that your voice can get there, then we reckon we can train you to sustainably get there.
Right.
And every night in that show, man, as I was getting close to that note, it was just because you're surrounded by people who are trained singers and dancers to be in musical theatre, and any one of them's looking at you like, why just sing?
Can't they just bring the key down? They can transpose it like just a couple of things.
I met Michelle, my wife, on a stage. We did a musical called "Oh What a Night," and I'm not a trained dancer. I sing, but I'm not a trained dancer, and obviously
not a trained singer either.
Well, not a trained singer, but I've sang all my life more or less. But anyway, in rehearsals and stuff, I'm having to. These are all professional trained dancers. I mean, I met my wife, and she had one leg up the wall, the other leg on the floor, and her head on her knee, and I went, do you fancy going out for dinner?
And ironically, 13 hours later, it was exactly the same.
No, I spotted she had a talent. She was very talented. Yes. Anyway, we on stage, and it's like what you're saying about when you know this isn't. You've got to get up to their level as close as you can, and they're like you saying for the professional singers and trained singers, you've got to hit that high note. The amount of times I had this big dance routine at the end, and we had to. It was like the finale dance thing, and I had to sort of spin this girl around, roll it, and then she drops, and I catch her like that, and it goes bang, and all the other dancers we all catch at the same time. The amount of times I dropped her.
Did you really drop her?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the amount of times I was worried about dropping her.
I was.
I didn't realise that you were just chucking her on the floor.
Do you know what it was?
The reason he was worried about her.
I never dropped her because I was thinking about it, but then I got confident. Yeah. And then I was like thinking about all this stuff, like, oh, should we go out later? We've been doing the show every day. And then I went, did, and she went out to drop and just went on the floor.
How did the audience respond to that?
No, and I didn't know what to do. We have to walk forward, and I just walked forward and left her, and then I didn't know the etiquette. And then she came off and went, you bastard! And I was like, you don't fucking leave me. So I said, I'm sorry, I was thinking about something else.
Yeah. I was thinking about something else. You know when you were tumbling me through the air and you were supposed to catch me? I was just wondering how the United score was going.
When I saw your elbow come up through your skin, I remember thinking to myself, have I ordered milk?
It was just that moment, like when you just brought it back to me then, of like, fucking hell, you've really got to concentrate here because you're not a dancer, you're really busking it. And then at at the end I had to do this thing where I spun round and it was like a kamikaze flip, and I had to flip from my hands to my feet. And one night I must have been tired and I didn't make it. Do you know, like I flipped to my hands to my feet and I went back on my hands, so I just crawled across the stage on my hands and feet as if it was part of the routine. Like an upside down sort of spider frog thing.
Anything to see that footage.
And people go, what's he fucking what's he doing? But yeah, I get it. But
you know, you talked about imposter syndrome earlier. You know, I mean, and you talked about sort of being on that level. I've never done a musical, but I could very much imagine. You know, you go in, well, you're not a trained dancer or singer, you're not a trained singer, but you've sort of had a bit, and you're going, I just hope I get to their level. And yeah, you've got to be like every night going, I mean, did you ever wonder if everyone around... I'm sure they weren't.
See you as a bit
I
of a
am sure they
fraud
weren't. But did you ever wonder if everyone around you, as nice as they were, like would see your face going, hey, morning, how are you doing? And then they were like, oh, God, you're amateur.
All the time,
yeah.
And that never left me.
Really?
And especially because that was the same job where I worked with this bloke who was a total nightmare.
Oh, really?
So then I'd be sat around people who were going like, oh yeah, what's he doing? Oh God, it makes it all so hard. Then he'd walk in and they'd be like, oh, morning.
Yeah.
So then it meant that I was sitting in my dressing room going, are they all upstairs going, God, he's terrible, that geezer, really? And then I walk in and they're like, hiya.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's quite I think a psychological revelation to realise that to just accept, you know, you go, God, I hope people aren't talking shit about me, and then you go, of course they are. Of course they are. Like, everyone talks shit about everyone. Like, you're gonna get some people that are mugging you off.
I know, but I think
it's taken me years to figure that out.
But this is the need to make everybody like you. You know, it's like a wise man knows you can't please all of the people all of the time. Yeah. Okay, I know that. So why am I still trying?
I'm the same. I try so hard.
I just don't want anyone to think I'm anything other than absolutely wonderful.
Exactly. It's why do I care so much about what people think? Because you're not going to change their mind, and I really do care too much and overcompensate sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, and also the number of people I meet who are just arseholes.
Yeah.
So why would I care what any of them think?
And also you're thinking, why don't you care? Like, it's like being a superhero. This is going to bring us neatly onto politics and stuff. I feel like Donald Trump has a superpower.
Yeah.
They have no shame.
Yeah.
And having no shame is like a superpower, because if you don't give a fuck what anybody thinks...
I envy people that can do that. Not care what people think about.
Do you know about the Psychopath model of governance? Again, this is quite dark, and once you hear it, it's quite hard to not see it through this lens, right? Psychopaths are about 10% of the population. We think of psychopaths as stabby killers, but it's not really that. It just defines a mindset in which you
You can be a non-dangerous, high-functioning sociopath.
That's it. But specifically psychopath. Yeah. So it's specifically psychopathy.
Yeah.
But it's really that other people don't really matter. They're just sort of shapes that are moving around in your own adventure, and that's the thing that must be protected at all costs.
Is it you don't feel empathy being a psychopath?
There's an enormous lack of empathy. I'm not a psychologist, by the way, so that's why I'm not defining these things in specific terms, because I'm with any of these things, especially like you put it on a podcast, you don't want other people to hear it and put great stock in that you kind of know the detail.
But we talk about this kind of thing a lot, and it's like, look, we're not experts, but this is what we've read around a little bit, and this is what I've vaguely heard.
And we live in the information age. Literally, the thing you're listening to this on can give you better information than I am giving you.
If this is of interest to you, look it up.
But that 10% psychopaths in society, they are interested in doing best for themselves, and other people don't really matter. Therefore, those people are pushing themselves to the top and pushing other people behind them. That's where they're swimming.
World leaders, CEOs.
Well, this is it, right?
Actors.
Now, all of the people that are in charge of anything are the psychopaths. But they are 10% of what represents humanity and society. So all the rules, all the systems are laid down by psychopaths, people who are incapable of introducing rules and laws.
Don't care about
because that's not what it's about. The rules are about creating a system that will benefit them and themselves. We're actually able now to analyse systemic problems and see where people are being disadvantaged. So we don't live in a meritocracy where if you're prepared to work hard, then you'll get on in life. Because if you're a black woman in this country, you can work as hard as you like. The odds of you being given the opportunities that you'll need to actually meet your potential are vastly fewer, and we know that now. So hey,
because of a name on a CV, even if you've got to the stage of applying for these. Yeah.
I mean, if we get into the detail of systemic racism or
that's a whole
systemic misogyny or systemic homophobia, you're here forever.
So, and we have the systems and data to know how to do that.
We can understand.
So the fact that we're not doing it is bizarre.
It's bizarre, and if you're a person given to reading a lot of those things and being quite interested in facts and truth, the idea that you get told one thing when the obvious is absolutely the opposite is absolutely obvious. It just has been doing a number on me for any number of years, and the last couple of years have only made that 10 times worse, to the point where I have to come off Twitter, I have to stop reading news, I have to stop doing those things, because I just walk around in a country full of people going, I mean, they say this, but it turns out they were actually doing... You're like, yes!
There's
no surprise in this anymore!
And you'll vote them back in again.
Yeah, because you'll be told that the other bloke is a terrorist.
And literally, by the way, we were saying this at the time, and you still voted him in on a landslide, and they were demonstrably lying to you.
I mean, and we're not going to get into it, but like, you know, all of the post-Brexit stuff that's going on now with people going, well, how could we have known? It's like, but people were literally shouting this
I was.
For years beforehand.
We got a bad review on our podcast. Somebody gave us a bad review going, Brexit's happened, get over it. I can't even remember mentioning it, but I obviously did. Oh, do you know what? Do one. Like, if you literally can't go... If no one's even allowed now to go, can we all objectively say that was a fucking terrible idea? If we can't at least agree that now, there is no objective reality.
No, and that's the thing, is there is no objective reality.
You mentioned Twitter. I guess I hadn't noticed that you're off Twitter, but you mentioned being off Twitter now. And I hadn't noticed that happen, but you and I sort of used to be, we have quite a bit of crossover. We used to be sort of Twitter allies and fighting the fight. And I guess, and there have been several times where I've gone, this just makes me miserable, I should just get off. And I haven't kind of managed to take that plunge, because I still think, I guess on some level, there's something worthwhile there. But are you happier? Was it a great move for you?
If I'm really honest, I would say that I believe it to be true that I had if not an addiction, like a habit,
an unhealthy relationship.
I realised anything I did, the reasons for coming off it basically were two things happened to me, and both things I thought were within the remit of my tribe, in inverted commas, to kind of rally round. And instead of rallying round, it was just people went, oh, that's tough. Whilst the people who wanted to make a point of attacking me didn't stop attacking me. So, you know, I was wearing eye makeup on the poster for a pantomime, and people accused me of yellow face.
What?
Jesus.
Now,
was the pantomime
Aladdin? Yeah, but in my head, right, when I put this eye makeup on, I'm like, well, Abanazar, the genie, jinn, that's an Persian story.
Yeah.
So I'm not Chinese.
No, it's an Arabic story.
It's an Arabic story. So in my head, like, Abanazar is a magician, so I'm thinking, Arabic or like Persian magician warlock baddie. Oh, it's Ra's al Ghul, right? From Batman.
Yeah.
Ra's al Ghul, in the stories I read, had this line under his eye, that went out. So that was all I did. I just put on Ra's al Ghul eye makeup. Other people saw it and they felt it spoke of yellow face to them. And again, if you saw that image and that's what inspired, fair enough. But it suddenly was this thing of like, I'm in a panto. I'm literally just trying to earn a living by doing the stupidest thing possible to spread a bit of joy at Christmas. And now here I am being accused of like the worst sort of thoughtless, lazy racism.
Well, but also, right, I guess you'd go, okay, if people thought that, even if 5 people thought that, even if one person thought that and it made them feel upset, you go, all right, that wasn't the intention. I won't do that again. Next time, it won't happen. Like, I didn't realise, never even occurred that was a thing. I won't do it again.
Sure, but I think that's the issue, is that I had thought about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'd actually done the work of, well, it's a Persian story originally.
So you're doing Arab
The character's called Abanazar. Yeah, if
anything, get it right.
But also, I'm deliberately not darkening my skin.
Yeah.
And the reference to Ra's al Ghul is because he's a wizard, not because he's Persian character A.
These people think like that. They just think, how can I find something wrong with that?
Exactly, and it's just bad faith.
That's all it is.
Right. No one comes at you.
Negative is negative.
Equally, sometime later, sometime later, 2 female journalists were having a conversation, which the first female journalist wrote, I don't want to get into a debate with other people about this, but another female journalist chimed in with, yeah, it does feel a bit that way to me too. They had 2 more exchanges, and then somebody gets in arguing with them on the exact thing that the first tweet said, I don't want to get into an argument with people about this, but.
Yeah.
And it was about sex work, and that was just what they were saying. Now, I read that, and in my Twitter head, I'm like, classic case. 2 women having a conversation, saying specifically they don't want to get into a debate, and now here's some clown, probably a man, going, what about this?
Yeah.
So
perhaps you should think of this. Yeah.
So in my head, seeing people interrupting women talking on the internet, I'm like, oh, well, the right thing to do here is not to reference the 2 women, not to white knight on their behalf, but to pull this person off, peel them away, and maybe have the conversation with them that will just end with me going, mate, I don't really want to have that chat, so let's peel away. So I joined in this saying, look, mate, they said they didn't want to have the conversation, and secondly, of all the things you could accuse people of, I don't think it's that. Well, the fucking floodgates open.
Yeah, they do.
I thought I was, they were having a conversation about sex work, and I thought this was a quiet thing where I was talking to really just taking the heat off 2 women on the internet talking.
Yeah.
But then it became a thing that essentially within, I think, about half an hour, I was in support of slavery and in support of sexual slavery.
And did you find that I've sort of pretty much managed to not do this anymore, but there are definitely times where I'm like, my missus or whoever I'm with was like, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, what you doing? I'm like, I'm in the middle of a Twitter thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 5 hours of my life have gone past, and I'm pretty good at it, if I may say so myself. I've like developed this really good way of like sardonically just putting people down and going, I don't mean putting people down, but people come at me and I'm like, mate, really? Have you considered that? Because blah blah blah. And like I got good at it, and I'm like, what am I getting out of this?
Yeah.
What is anybody getting out of it? That's the point.
As soon as you get involved, they've already won.
But it doesn't change anybody's mind. That's the thing. It doesn't change anybody's mind. Where everybody who agreed with you and finishes agreeing with you, and everybody who doesn't.
Exactly.
So it's not like you've helped anything or done anything. So yeah, it is a bit weird. But then there is this sort of slightly, maybe it's narcissistic, but then I'm like, I know, but I've still got nearly 300,000 people who follow me, and do I want to look back if things get really horrible and go, I didn't say anything? Maybe not. So then you're like, should I keep staying stuff? I don't know. I don't know what difference it makes. It's a quandary.
I got to the point of thinking, on a pragmatic level, well, this isn't changing anything.
Yeah.
I've run for Parliament for the doctors.
Yeah.
I've made as much noise. 8 years ago was talking about the stealth privatisation of the NHS.
Yeah, still happening.
And I stood up and banged the drum, and I did what I could. It made fuck all difference, seemingly.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? Spend the rest of my life just feeling like, well, I'm going to make a load of noise, make fewer and fewer people like me or think I'm good. Actually, what I am is Johnny Clown Shoes. It's like, put me on a stage, let me make you laugh, let me
Johnny Clown Shoes.
Yeah, let me do a fun thing for you.
Russell,
it isn't meant to be shouting and screaming about all the things that are wrong.
Well, Russell Howard said, as I asked him why he's not on Twitter or everything, he was like, I just don't think it's real. And I do wonder if he's got a point. He was like, nothing on there is real in the real world, and he does have a point. You're off it now, right? And it doesn't matter. Like, nothing that's happened on Twitter has affected your life in any way since you came off it, right?
No.
Now, the only thing where I guess that Russell wasn't right about was it was sure as shit real when Donald Trump was able to use it to mobilise his base, and like you don't think that really?
I think there's a degree to which that's true, but I honestly, by this point, I just see it as money and influence. It's all of the papers in this country are owned by billionaires.
Yeah.
And that idea of self-select, it's like, well, the journalists that work for them, they're not saying, oh, every morning a billionaire walks in and says, right, well, you better promote capitalism.
Yeah.
But it's the self-selection. Those newspapers aren't employing the person who walks in combat boots and DMs and a beret and says, I want to write about how the entire system's broken.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's not really what we do as a paper.
Yeah.
So it's just that cultural thing of like, obviously capitalism is right. Obviously we couldn't just tear it all up and start again. Capitalism's only been how we've organised ourselves the last 2,000 years.
You got any jokes?
No, I would just want to know what he was up to next. I just wanted to know what was next.
So do I, baby. I think I better stick to telling you jokes. No.
Listen, it's all you. This is what we're here about.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I'll start taking this ADHD medication.
See how you get on. See how you get on.
Yeah. Well. I will. I'll give you a joke though.
Yeah, go on. Let's
Have you got a joke?
send on
Have
a
you got
joke.
anything? Something funny? Yes.
What breed was the magic dog?
I don't know what breed was the magic dog.
The Labracadabrador.
There we go. Thank you very much, Rufus Hound. Rufus Hound. Where did Rufus Hound come from?
Yeah, Hound.
It's not your real name.
Well, I mean, in many ways, he always existed.
It was always like. Remember the 3-year-old who was doing the.
Honestly, there's no interesting story to this. It was at the point I was going to start doing stand-up. And
you thought Robert, what is it?
Rob Simpson is my real name.
Robert Simpson wasn't interesting enough.
It wasn't that. It was the birth of the internet. Everyone was panicking about having their .com. If you didn't have your own .com, it was all going to go horribly wrong. And RobSimpson.com was already taken. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to be something else then. And
Where'd the Hound come from?
Sat in a cafe in Edinburgh. I was teching somebody else's show in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And Russell Brand was in that show.
Oh.
And I'd seen Russell do stand-up previously. We were sort of pals. And over the course of that show, hanging out a bit, a few times he said to me, you know, you should really be doing stand-up. I was like, oh, well, that's very kind. I don't know, though, man. And he was like, no, I think you'd be great. And so over the course of that show, him and a couple of other people were like, you should be doing it. So sat in a cafe, went, well, I can't be Rob Simpson if I was going to give it a go. And 5 of us sat drinking tea and coming up with funny comedian names. And it literally came down to 2. It was either going to be Rufus Hound or Jiminy Biscuit.
I really wish you'd been Jiminy Biscuit.
Jiminy Biscuit.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
I'd have given anything to have done a podcast interview with Jiminy Biscuit.
Jimmy Biscuit.
In a way, I think I did.
Yes!
Jiminy Biscuit can be our driver.
Yeah. He's got to have a little cap.
Yeah.
Or government Jiminy Biscuit.
With a bourbon stuck on there.
Bourbon on the front.
Actually, that fits in with a 2 pints tall.
Exactly, the
there
biscuits.
You go. There we go.
Well, thanks so much for coming
mate.
in. I know it's gone on a bit longer than we thought, but I hope thanks for your time.
Thanks for coming in and depressing the shit out of you, but having a podcast where Ralf kept looking over and smiling and nodding.
So
Yeah,
Ralf is so happy he had an intelligent conversation for once, because usually he's stuck with me talking about farts and assholes.
Which, by the way, I still enjoy greatly.
Yeah.
This gives me a chance to prove that I also like talking about other stuff occasionally.
This is the equivalent of eat your vegetables.
yeah. I can just have steaks now for as long as crisps and biscuits.
Bring on the fat Tupperwares!
Well, thanks for coming
man,
on.
What a pleasure.
Jiminy Biscuits!
Jiminy Biscuit!
Rufus Hound!
Yay!
Thanks very much.